Shalom. I want to start out by saying Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai HaMashiach, Kol Halo Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai HaMashiach. I was reading this headline, and it's bullshit, and I'll explain to you why after I read this article, all right? Putin and Trump will not allow armed confrontation between Russia and U.S. Lavrov, all right? Vladimir Putin, Donald Trump will absolutely not allow armed confrontation between Russia and the U.S., Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov told RIA Novosti in an interview. Speaking about risks of military confrontation, I am 100% sure that both the U.S. and Russian militaries won't allow this, and of course, neither will President Vladimir Putin or President Donald Trump, Lavrov said. Again, this is just politics and bread and circus. It's a lie. All right, and I'll explain in a minute. After all, they are leaders elected by their people and are responsible for their peace, the Russian foreign minister added. Again, it's just politics and bread and circus. Amid deteriorating relations between Moscow and Washington, Lavrov signaled that there are attempts to ease the knot. In particular, the foreign minister announced that the U.S. president invited his Russian counterpart to Washington during a phone call. Trump said he would be glad to see Putin in the White House, and then added that he would be happy to make a reciprocal visit to Moscow. Again, just politics, bread, and circus. It's a lie. Because keep in mind, we're in a proxy war with Russia at the moment. All right, and Vladimir Putin, he knows himself that the chemical weapon weapon attack was a false flag, and that the United States of America funds terrorism so they could overthrow legitimate governments. All the evidence is out there. In fact, tensions are escalating. During the interview, Lavrov also touched upon the U.S.-led strikes on Syria last week. Here's the point. Trump, along with the allies, the UK and France, ordered the bombardment following an alleged chemical attack in Douma. It came just hours before experts from the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, OPCW, were due to begin a fact-finding mission. After the U.S.-led strikes, Russia no longer has any moral barrier on S-300 missile system deliveries to Syria, according to the foreign minister. All right, so if Syria gets those S-300 missile defense systems, expect Syria to get real hot. Moscow promised not to send S-300s to Damascus around 10 years ago at the request of its partners, he said. We took into consideration their argument that this would destabilize the situation despite the missile systems being purely defensive. We heeded their calls, but now we have no such moral obligation, Lavrov stated. Again, it's political. Syria will get the S-300 missile defense systems. Syrian air defense systems intercepted 71 out of 103 missiles launched at civilian and military targets. The Russian Defense Ministry said shortly after the airstrikes, Russian air defense units in Syria were not involved in repelling the attack. All right, they had older missile defense systems. Prior to the Western bombardment, Russia warned the U.S. that crossing certain red lines in Syria would prompt retaliatory measures from Moscow, Lavrov stated. The foreign minister quoted Russian Chief of the General Staff Valery Gerasimov as saying that if any actions of the Western coalition affected Russian servicemen, Moscow will respond. And I read an article that Russians were killed, but they weren't servicemen. I don't know if that's true or not. I'll check. Russian military leadership and generals met their U.S. counterparts who were informed about Russian so-called red lines, including geographical red lines on the ground. Anyway, these red lines were not crossed during the coalition's campaign, he added. All right. So now, again, I just want to remind you, this is all politics, bread and circus. All right. Vladimir Putin and Trump are actually enemies, and we're involved in a proxy war against Russia right now. All right, we are already in war with Russia. This is the midst of World War III. We're in the midst of World War III right now. Again, Trump, to your right, he's controlled by the permanent state, the military-industrial complex. Putin knows that. They're enemies. All right, so now to prove that this is false, I'm going to pull up a video. My phone might lag, so just bear with me so it loads.
Are committed to overthrowing the government. That.
All right, I'm going to start at the beginning.
But now I'm going to show you something that's got accidentally got let out on MSNBC. Oh. And so here you go. This happened last Friday on the Morning Joe Ball.
So Jeffrey Sachs, chime in. This is very different.
First of all, I'm like, who's Jeffrey Sachs? I watch MSNBC all the time. I don't ever remember seeing this guy. Why? What? And I'm like, oh, so there's a new guy. I'm thinking, did the CIA just pull a new guy out to push the war? Who is this guy? And listen to what he says. And now you know why you're never going to see him on MSNBC. Here it comes.
Than just a war between two countries. This is as convoluted as it gets and could get out of control. I don't think people might really conceptualize, maybe even not this president, how out of control this could escalate.
It's true, but I think we have to step back and not put this in partisan terms. This is a U.S. mistake that started 7 years ago, and I remember the day on your show.
Mm-hmm. It's funny, right? I'm like, I'm just thinking what you said. This guy will never be. This is a U.S. mistake.
What a treat to hear someone like this.
Yes, what a treat.
I can already tell it's like, giving it to you straight.
Here it comes.
When President Obama said Assad must go, and I looked at you and Joe and I said, how's he going to do that? Where's the policy for that?
Right.
And we know they sent in the CIA to overthrow Assad. The CIA and Saudi Arabia together in covert operations tried to overthrow Assad. It was a disaster. Eventually it brought in both ISIS as a splinter group to the jihadists that went in. It also brought in Russia. So we have been digging deeper and deeper and deeper. What we should do now is get out and not continue to throw missiles, not have a confrontation with Russia. 7 years has been a disaster under Obama, continuing under Trump. This is what I would call the permanent state. This is the CIA. This is...
All right. Keep in mind that Vladimir Putin knows Trump is controlled by the military-industrial complex. The only reason why they're there is to overthrow a legitimate government so they could get an oil pipeline. Vladimir Putin is not going to allow that because he's allies with Syria. All right. He also knows that the United States funds terrorism. Russia is there to fight terrorism. All right. So now I'm going to fast forward to a key point.
And how this happened because of us. These 600,000 are not just incidental. We started a war to overthrow a regime. It was covert. It was Timber Sycamore. People can look it up, the CIA operation.
Timber Sycamore, look it up.
Together with Saudi Arabia, still shrouded in secrecy, which is part of the problem in our country. A major war effort shrouded in secrecy, never debated by Congress, never explained to the American people, signed by President Obama, never explained. And this created chaos. And so just throwing more missiles in right now is not a response.
My only concern...
We need to go, it's, by the way, not to walk away, to go to the UN Security Council, as the Admiral says, to agree with Russia on a strategy for ending the fight. But ending the fight means that we stop trying to overthrow a government, that we stop trying to support rebels who are committed to overthrowing the government. That is where this war continues, because we to this day back rebels that are trying to overthrow a government contrary to international law, contrary to the UN Charter, contrary to common sense, contrary to practical path. We can't do it. And it's just creating ongoing crisis to the extent of facing an imminent confrontation with Russia.
So I think this is...
All right. Point being, there will be an imminent confrontation with Russia. All right. America makes its money off of war and off of oil. So it's not going to leave Syria. All right. Because it makes its money off of war, off of oil. It won't survive unless it stays in Syria. All right. And there will be imminent confrontation with Russia because Russia is in Syria. Americans are in Syria. So war with Russia is imminent. Point being. All right. So now I'm going to read Ezekiel 38 chapter, 2nd verse. Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him. That's Russia. Say, thus saith Yahweh power, behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth, and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. So that's it. All right, it is spoken by the Heavenly Father. He's going to bring Russia into war with America. All right, so we're in the midst of World War III right now. We're already in proxy war with Russia. We're in the midst of World War III right now. It's imminent. All this Russia on television is just flamming that flame. All right, because it's deep state. And no matter what, there's Russian servicemen in Syria. There's American servicemen in Syria. The Syria conflict is going to get out of control. War with Russia is imminent. And we're in the midst of World War III right now. We're already at war with Russia right now. So with that, I'm going to say Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai HaMashiach, Call Hello Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai HaMashiach, double honors, apostle, elders, great millstone, who are the holy apostles and prophets mentioned in the book of Revelation. Bless the Akim that are pushing more in true sincerity. To all you men of great millstone, I say, Barakatam, Bahasham Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai HaMashiach, Waha, Racha, Kodash, and Shalom. Again, war with Russia is imminent. We're in the midst of World War III right now. And that article is just politics, bread and circus. It's a lie. All right. And everyone in the international community knows Russia and America are bound to butt heads. And we're in the midst of World War III right now. With that, Shalom.